Hello and welcome to our SLB show emergency pod. We thought it's time to dust it down, get the siren out, and you know what? It's 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 been a while. So here's Matt and Grant to chat all things emergency pod worthy. So where do we start? Obviously today announced about, I think it was 4:30, that Chris Grant has stepped down as chair of the BBF. There's an interim chair coming in, and we thought we would just have a chat about it and see what we all think. And yeah, Matt, where do we want to start?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think to start off, we caveat by saying that he's left he stated that he's left for personal reasons, so we've got to respect that. And I guess a flag of this, what will probably come from this emergency pod is not a slanging match. It's, a lot of people have got some very strong opinions about Chris Grant, but, we're going to talk about the position of the chair of the BBF has stood down. What does that mean for British basketball?
Yeah, and the kind of questions that potentially is, I suppose, getting created. Like, online will be full of stuff. And we've said before, I think the big stumbling block for Chris Grant from the start of all this, and you know what, as you said, what has he done? It seems to be there's a better message for between the home counties and the BBF and whatnot. Like that seems in a lot more positive place. Like performance-wise, the junior international stuff hasn't been great, but there seems to be a bit more of a better setup behind it. The license got taken away from 777. Who knows where we would have been, about 15 months ago had that not happened, and the 777 mob and Big Joshy boy and his lads were still on the scene. Where would we be with that? And that possibly could have been the start of Chris Grant's downfall. We've said before, and I've said to people and happily say it to people again, it always felt to me that Chris Grant's big downfall all stemmed from the Hoops Fix interview. I was on a call with Chris not long after that, and it was a similar kind of performance. It very much felt like he was on the back burner. We've all listened to it. If you've not listened to the Hoops Fix interview, go and listen to it. It's very much worth listening to. And it's always interesting when someone like Sam gets frustrated on a call or a podcast like that. It's not going to stem you in good state when Sam is so respected in the community that people are going to almost side against you based on how you acted. And it kind of has always felt since then that the BBF haven't really controlled any sort of the narrative, which doesn't then help Chris Grant, as everyone just goes for that person from that interview. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I like what you said about, there has been some stuff that has happened in the 3 years that the BBF has been chaired by Chris Grant, which has been unarguably positive, and that we can't gloss over that. If we're going to criticize them for doing stuff that we don't agree with, we've got to praise them when they do stuff we do agree with. Working really hard with the then fledgling SLB Limited to get basketball back on track with no miss. And so it was one off season that it kind of died and came back. So, that was a lot to do with Chris Grant, and that was fantastic. And I'm very thankful to him for that. However, as you quite rightly say, Chris Grant's legacy, or what he will probably be most remembered for, is the licensing process fiasco between the SLB clubs and ultimately GBBL. Whether or not you sided with the SLB clubs, which I think everyone in British basketball did, or whether or not you sided with GBBL, which I believe Chris Grant did, obviously, because that's who he awarded it to. What is undeniable is the BBF ran a flawed, possibly illegal, we don't know yet, process. And that is that the buck stops for that with Chris Grant and the BBF. So I think since then, that's when the real sort of real butt of heads between the BBF and everyone else sort of started. So people within basketball, fans, all this kind of stuff, that's where it really started sort of ramping up. And then you saw people like Sam, as you say, get incredibly frustrated. You saw people like Dan Routledge on Sunday Night Breakdown have his rant about his impassioned speech, I should say. It wasn't a rant, it was like
it's more than a
really
rant. It's more than a rant.
Emotion driven, sort of putting out his stock. And yeah, so then it was the second interview with Sam, which I think Sam, like as you said, Sam showed his frustration, and Chris, he came across a bit prickly and a bit frustrated that he was almost getting this level of pushback. Which, you know, if we're thinking, if Chris Grant truly did think this was the best thing for British basketball, I can understand why he would be so annoyed, where he's like, oh, why doesn't everyone see this for the great opportunity that I see it as? Unfortunately, everyone else who has been sort of has touched British basketball didn't see it like that. And that's where you get, you know, the allegations of it's just a money grab and all this kind of stuff, and it will cripple British basketball and stuff like that. So yeah, unfortunately for Chris Grant, he's gonna leave British basketball, being most known for licensing and what has been called in the media British basketball civil war. And that is undeniably a failure of leadership in one way or the other. So, yeah, that's
because a lot's always spoken about what is the remit, or what are the remits, sorry, of a governing body in basketball. It is, I suppose, oversee a professional league and then run international basketball. And obviously, the way the sport's been set up, maybe in the UK with the home counties, is maybe not, or that's probably one of the fundamental things that might come out of all this, is we'll have a proper review and restructure. And I suppose we've not really even mentioned yet is the big bad FIBA task force that we've not, other than hearing that they flew into Heathrow for chats via the Yorkshire Post. Where would we be without the Yorkshire Post?
God bless
the journalist Nick
Westby, fantastic work, and thank you, Nick Westby. Amazing.
Give him a follow, because, well, the Yorkshire Post is where it's all at. But generally being, we don't know. We both kind of have an opinion. We think that Chris Grant stepping aside doesn't instantly mean anything. FIBA are still massively involved. Whether they insisted on Chris Grant leaving or whatnot, we'll maybe never find out now. But this task force, led by, let's be honest, 3 pretty big wigs within FIBA Europe, they have the potential to almost shut down international basketball in Britain. And I suppose that is the biggest penalty that FIBA could implement. And I suppose you look down the line and be like, okay, well, is that punishment not required, because you don't really want players to be punished for governance issues and coaches missing out on development opportunities? But is this an opportunity where actually, you know what, we need to just fully clean up our house, our structures, that I suppose along with FIBA were rushed in for 2012, because FIBA, we didn't have a British basketball set up before then, and it's kind of just been the status quo since. And actually, the SLBs, or the Civil War, has brought up loopholes on everyone's side that everyone's trying to take advantage of. That, let's be honest, they're loopholes, so they shouldn't be there. So there's the potential of an international ban, you suppose, and everyone will be working hard to not have that. That then also, in less than 12 months, we have the 3x3 Commie Games in the UK, in Glasgow, where it would be a Scotland, England, and I suppose Wales might try and qualify as well, would be trying to compete at. And that actually it'd be pretty cool to have on our doorstep. Or my doorstep, of being selfish. But that's all under jeopardy. And the big, I suppose, Matt, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the whole FIBA task force.
Yeah, so I think it's, you know, stuff like this always happens where people leave positions, and sometimes in other places it's been alleged that people are asked to leave before they are pushed. We don't know if that's the case. The statement is that Chris Grant has left personal reasons, so we've got until we hear otherwise, that's what we've got to take.
And a lot of stuff in these, sorry to interrupt, these announcements can be really good spinny PR chat.
Of
and
course,
words could mean other things, but taking
it's phrasing.
taking words as words' sake. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So then, but I don't think it's any coincidence that within 3 or 4 weeks of the FIBA task force being a thing, there is now a different chair of the BBF. So I think it's fair to assume that FIBA have come in and have had a look at the land, the lay of the land, and think we need a reset in leadership. And basically, because I think what they said before was that the BBF are struggling to basically deliver they're struggling to satisfy FIBA
compliancy or compliance
or something like that. Yeah. So obviously Grace Jana is her name. Sorry, Grace Jacka. Sorry, who was already on the board is now interim chair. So that speaks to, FIBA maybe wanting someone to just steady the ship. We're going to find someone to run this properly. But even in the BBF statement, the whole thing around it was very, there have been really strong foundations built, and Chris Grant has left a template to continue, and all this kind of stuff, which feels like, okay, so there was some really good foundations laid, but we just need to carry on with them and build on what has already been done. Unfortunately, the building upon is the next level. But yeah, it's got to be. I don't know, because I don't know what FIBA governance is like, and I'm hopefully, we'll be chatting to people that are more clued up than me about this. But like, what FIBA's, where their reach ends and where we've got to kind of make up sort out our own mess. But yeah, I think if it would be really sad, obviously, for players who are, progressing through their career and, just by timing, lose the ability or the opportunity to play for their national team in a competition, whether that's, World Cup, Olympic qualifiers, and whatever's coming up next, because of, administrative incompetency, really.
And is this, we've got another new interim kind of chair. Is this a thing you could see? I could see FIBA coming in and saying, you know what? Yes, we know there's issues across your sport, and a whole new board's brought in. Because it's really interesting that in every statement we've had so far, there's never really a name attached to it. So it instantly becomes Chris Grant. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting now we're getting two names on this statement, obviously thanking Chris. And like, are the board, what's the right word to say here? Conflicted? Not conflicted, but I'll say what I'm trying to say, and the word people will know what I mean. But I think the whole strategy around this from the board hasn't helped Chris Grant or BBF by so many was there 12 on the board? It's quite a big board, if I remember right.
It's a big board, yeah.
Not just a little board, big board. Being quiet and almost being not there. And then I felt that's going to set things up for it all to just be geared at one person, whether that's protecting other people. Maybe that's fine. But I find it now interesting. We'll maybe see more names coming up, more names being attached to statements. Or is that one thing that people will be looking for? Actually, let's clear this out. Let's get back to putting the foundations in. I don't know if you saw these, the foundations back in. That will actually let everything draw the line in the sand properly and go.
I hope so, because I think, as you said, we never heard anything for all this controversy. We never heard anything from the rest of the board about it. And that, to me, means they either agree with everything that happened or they were not able to affect any kind of change, which kind of feels like, okay, well, then they're not strong enough within their role to push back on stuff and all this kind of stuff. So it's really, really tricky. But yeah, hopefully. So we've got, where are we? Who's the new one that's coming? Grace Jacker. So interim chair. I don't know what time frame the next one's going to be either. We also have Sadie Mason as well, who is I don't know what she had, some sort of accountable officer.
Sounds like a new interim role.
Yeah. So I don't know what that means, but here we are. But just sort of to kind of change tack a little bit, what I thought was interesting is that in the BBF statement, there was absolutely no mention whatsoever
Of the GBBL.
about the pro game at all,
Yeah.
or GBBL or the SLB or anything, and that whole licensing thing, it was just not even mentioned. Which,
But is that not just what we've just kind of
mad.
just said? They've kind of wanted to concentrate on things that has happened positively, the home counties, that kind of stuff. But yeah, 100% for being probably the main reason that if there has been massive positives elsewhere, the main reason Chris Grant's leaving is because of the issues with the professional license. Like, that's a fact.
And maybe they can't say because there's tons of legal action going on and things like that. But yeah, I thought that it was just really, really weird that it wasn't there. So I guess really the BBF is going to be somewhat on the naughty step / run by FIBA for the foreseeable future until, I don't know if they've got any power in suggesting or recommending a new chair, or if that oversteps their remit.
No, I think that oversteps. I think that that'll belong to Department Culture, Media and Sport, DCMS.
Okay, cool.
Almost certain. But I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah, so it's just really, really interesting about
Well,
everything.
So we're kind of getting to the point where we're saying, obviously Chris Grant's stepping aside or stepping down, whatever way you look at it, but does it change anything in the short, medium term?
I think yes. It doesn't change anything for the better yet, but I think this gets the ball rolling. This is the first step of changes happening. And whether that's good change, whether that's bad change, who knows? Maybe FIBA come in to the BBF and go, you guys should absolutely be all the way behind NBA Europe and all this stuff we're trying to sort out. And, we've got to build British basketball from the ground up. And that's the focus. So that, in my eyes, would be a bad change. But I think we've sort of said before on the pod where something needs to happen, for good or bad, but it needs to happen because we're getting strung along as fans, and we just need closure, and we just need, to be able to concentrate on the basketball. So hopefully this is it's another chapter in British basketball beef, but hopefully it's one more chapter closer to the end of the story.
Yeah, and I suppose the ideal fluffy world is a happy, vibrant pro scene, junior scene, thousands of people actually playing registered basketball. But yeah, it's like, do you think we should be seeking I suppose it's the question that Mitch had brought up in our WhatsApp in terms of will the community be seeking a new direction or restructuring of the sports? Will the governance fully changed? Like, when you think about it, was it Basketball England's got a new CEO coming in? Mm-hmm. Same with Basketball Scotland. Like, it feels like now is the time for, you'd hope, positive change across.
Yeah.
Massive key positions are changing. Mm. And you hope that conversations along with the interim or the chairperson at the SLB as well. So all stakeholders are at the table, really mapping out what's positive. And obviously, we wait to see what happens with NBA Europe. Does that then have a knock-on effect with GBBL? Probably. And we wait and see what happens. But it does this feel like a turn in the road? A new direction? Are we coming off the rocky road, approaching that B road, trying to get on the motorway to success? Possibly.
I think so. And I also think that, there was obviously friction between Chris Grant and the SLB owners, right? I think there was a quite maybe not animosity, but there was friction. So hopefully, just now Chris Grant is gone or has left, then, as you say, with all these new CEOs and new people coming in, there's just none of that baggage around. And hopefully, instead of, people getting stuck in their ways and stuck in their position, we'll actually get some progress in some areas. But, in terms of what it looks like, there's a lot to fix, but it also feels like there's kind of not a lot. It almost feels like there's a lot of opportunity and there's not a lot of really, really set, hard, fast processes that are in place. So you can just rip up the rule book because nothing's happening anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of like age group stuff and pathways and coaches and referees and officials and
well, that's the next question. Like, does this? There's a wee bit of kind of people chat, being like, just speaking to people at the Gladiators game tonight about, but does this actually, Chris Grant moving, does that bring a step closer to the FIBA refs coming back? Like, is that? And there was a bit of thought being chatted amongst different people that this change here could prompt the referees to come back to the table, or for that kind of whole discussion to come to an end. Like, it's probably just fan zone chat, but actually the two aren't related at all. But yeah, do you know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. It's just more stuff, more uncertainty and less clarity for fans. And it's
do you think we'll get like a statement whatever way on this, like, because we're a sport that loves a statement, obviously with Chris Grant moving on a Sunday afternoon, will the SLB put a statement out over the next couple of days?
It would.
Or would they go through someone like a Sam or the Guardian, or do you know what I mean, like some of the other papers that's do you know what I mean?
I mean, if I could see the new interim CEO of the SLB making a statement, and if a figurehead like that for a league isn't making statements on major basketball news, what's he for? Do you know what I mean? Like they got to be that figurehead, right? And take the personality clashes aside, the BBF has no chair at the moment. That impacts the British, the SLB, even though they can do what they want with impunity because they don't need anything from the BBF apparently. But like, there's still, that is something that they should have a position on. And court cases aside, and thinking about it objectively, they should have a position on that. They should see there should be opportunities for, we're looking forward to the process, or we're looking forward to seeing who the new chair is. We're going to work with XYZ and stuff like that. And there's an opportunity to show that you're the grown up in the room of how you react to it, right? There's an opportunity to be open and say, look, thank you for everything you've done, Chris Grant. You helped establish SLB. Wish you luck, but also we're looking forward to the next chapter of the BBF. Right? There's a nice kind of professional
legal way of saying, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's just a nice way that we can align GB, the home nations, and the clubs somehow. Mm-hmm. How that works,
it's going to take a lot of time, and that's why we're saying smarter people than you and I. It's so true, but I've lost my train of thought, but let's go back to it's going to this is I want to say hurdle number one, and it feels like there's going to be countless more hurdles to get to whatever destination. There's many stops along the line. Could we get multiple newses coming along at the same time? Who knows? But it feels like, okay, this is the moment. Things could get worse before they get better. We could see FIBA stepping in and going like, well, you know what? We have to follow our procedures, and actually we're going to place you for now under an international ban. Considering we've got 2 FIBA windows coming up very shortly, women first before the men, that wouldn't be very good. It just wouldn't be good, considering everything. It wouldn't be very good. However, especially after the news that the women have announced a new head coach.
We should be talking about that. That's an amazing appointment.
We should be talking about good news.
Yeah, sorry, we're 25 minutes in.
And we're going to be rounding up very shortly, because we're doing this all again tomorrow night, on whatever. But we should be hyping towards her first squad being announced and who's going to be in the training camp. That's what you'd want the choo-choo train to be going. Let's get on the re-hype, because Eurobasket flopped. The men did get their first win for 13 years, but some of the performances weren't very good. The women had their worst Eurobasket for a long, long time. And there's no women's team in playing FIBA Euro Cup this year, for example, that's a step back. And I mean, we've talked about this based on the men's league, but the women's league has its own issues, which I don't want to start that tangent. Let's not go there.
I can't.
Let's not go there. This could be 6 hours long. But going back, it seems as if there's opportunities. Hopefully we don't go back too many stages before we go forward. You'd hope the clever people at the table with FIBA and the home counties, before you even think of the SLB, are at the table being like, okay, what can we do to stop an international ban? You'd really hope that's going to happen, because nobody wants that. It's not good for anyone. It's not good for your reputation. It's not good for going to market for looking for commercial stuff. But then let's go back to talking about the license thing. Where does this leave us with GBBL? Who knows? Where does it leave us with the SLB stuff? We don't know yet. And I think there'll be announcements. I think it'll come like buses. There'll be one after the other. And hopefully it's for the right direction, and we see British basketball going the way. We might not all agree with what way it should go, but going in a way that we can see some sort of growth, development, some sort of almost not passion project, but everyone just seeing more people playing, more teams playing both local league, second tier, third tier, pro league, more British players playing at the top of the game, and more people come to watch the sport that we talk about it countless times a week, countless claims a day, countless discussions every day online, in person, whatever, that the sport just gets to where we all wanted to get to.
Yeah, I think I'm with you in that I think the longer the FIBA task force are kind of running things, I think the worse it is, because as you touched on, for commercial stuff, are people gonna want to get involved in a sport for the first time that is basically in Ofsted special measures? Do you know what I mean? So that's a big thing, and it feels like, when you're in, it feels like, when your internet is patchy at home, so you turn the router off, you give it a minute, and you turn it back on again. It feels like this is that reset button, and hopefully all the gremlins that have been in the system will have worked themselves out, and finally we're just going to get a bit of clarity and we can all move forward together. But we live in hope.
You almost said that like a true politician there. All right, that'll do it for this show. Hopefully it's been quite interesting. Just what's your views? Comment below on whatever platforms. We will be back over the next day or two with the normal SLB show, because actually another exciting week of basketball's just happened, I promise. So from Matt and I, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and we'll be back on another episode of the SLB show.